Blog Talk Radio.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio on a special Monday edition. It is Monday, June 29th, 2015. This is your host, Andrew Fisher, normally broadcasting Wednesdays from the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to expose the true and false nature of reality for what it is and what it isn't. Today's show will be an hour and a half long, 6 to 7:30 p.m. The guest is Mark Kimmel, an ET contactee, a very interesting individual. The title of the episode is Spiritually Analyzing Info to Shift Your Cosmic Paradigm. And Mark Kimmel, he gives some very fascinating information. I just recently listened to that interview he did with Andromeda Council contactee Tolek like a week or two ago. A lot of fascinating stuff in that interview. I will talk about some of the stuff in that interview with him, a couple of things I'd like to clear up and clarify that I heard. But for the most part, this interview will be about Mark's new book, Chrysalis, Angels, ETs, and Us. I'll be using the table of contents in that book, which I have right by me here on my side. Mark was nice enough to give me a copy of it. I have every intention of reading it, although I will not be able to get to reading it just yet. I'm trying to finish the book Tragedy and Hope, which is 1,311 pages long. I just got past page 1,000, and I vowed that I will not read another book until I finish reading that book. So as soon as I finish reading Tragedy and Hope, which should be within the next month or two, then after that I will immediately start reading Mark's book, Chrysalis, Angels, ETs, and Us. But like I said, I'll have it here on my side to use as a guide throughout this interview. I believe this is Mark in the queue, area code 661. I will get him on and no later than, we'll try to keep the news to 5 minutes because we don't have a 2-hour show. We only have an hour and a half show. But as usual, we will start with the news courtesy of Alex Jones and Company at InfoWars. First article, award-winning comedian, politically correct left has killed comedy. The award-winning comedian says it's the liberal agenda that dictates what can and cannot be joked about. Yes, it's pretty disgusting that a comedian will get fired if he jokes about the wrong things. Jay Leno, maybe. Yes, and don't forget what happened to Hank Williams Jr. with his insults about Obama costing him his job singing on Monday Night Football, the introductions. And yes, you can't joke about the wrong things or say insults about the wrong things, or if you're a comedian, you'll lose your comedy job. If you're or something else, or any other job, you'll lose that job, regardless of whether it's comedy-oriented or not. It's a shame people have to watch what they say, and even though freedom of speech would not apply if you're under contract working for some people, it would be nice if all these private businesses would at least act like they respect the First Amendment and not fire people for exercising free speech rights. But anyway, next article, Education Department's support for gay marriage sparks outrage. The department oversees public education of millions of young Americans. Yes, Department of Education should be called the Department of Brainwashing. Not that a lot of the people who work on the Department of Education intend to brainwash kids. It's just that they're compartmentalized and are working for a conspiracy to brainwash children. And this whole gay marriage thing, I mean, I am not a devout Christian, so it's not like I am against gay marriage, and that nothing against devout Christians or anything. But, you know, they would be ones who would say, like, marriage is a holy sacrament between a man and a woman, and there's other faiths that would say the same thing. But I have nothing against gay marriage, and the Supreme Court, you know, they're being told how to rule their cases, but some cases, the powers that be don't necessarily have to tell them how to rule. So the Supreme Court, maybe in this case, was able to decide on their own, and they decided gay marriage is okay. So, I mean, I don't know what the Education Department is doing, teaching kids that gay marriage is okay in schools and whatnot. I mean, it's going to polarize things, but hey, I'm for gay marriage. Enough of that. Moving on to the next article. Goldman Sachs boss, Bilderberg member Peter Sutherland says Europe needs more refugees from Africa and Syria. He declares mass migration good economically and socially. It's all a lie and a scam and a fraud. Member of the Goldman Sachs gang cannot be trusted. And Peter Sutherland obviously wants more refugees from Africa and Syria to come to Europe to impoverish Europe, just like how they're bringing illegal immigrants across the border from Mexico into America to impoverish us, take our jobs, and all the rest of it. So don't believe that it's good economically and socially, because it's not. Next article. Scare tactics. Terror talk. Politicians and former CIA head, FBI, DHS all ramp up warnings for Independence Day. Congressman warns of terrorists in American basements on July 4th. Yes, use the threat of terrorism to scare Americans into giving up their rights and whatnot. I'm not falling for it. And if a terrorist attack happens, an alarm bell should go off saying staged by the government, which of course would mean staged by the powers that be. So don't fall for that. Next article. Mother arrested, charged with child endangerment for letting 7-year-old play in the park. Oh, police. A playground was a few hundred feet away from home within eyesight. And this mother, this helicopter parent, whatever you want to call it, is now being nailed for trying to let her kid develop on his own and play in the park on his own. And well, this is kind of a tough call, some might say, because on one hand, you want to let your kids play on their own, but on the other hand, how can you not let your kids play on their own and think, oh my God, are they going to get kidnapped by a reptilian alien? Because Alex Collier, well-known ET contactee, who I will be seeing at the Mount Shasta conference that I'll be going to in August, he said that a vast majority of kidnappings, and the reason those kids will never see the light of day is because the people that kidnapped them were working for malevolent reptilian aliens who sacrifice children and feed off their energy. And I mean, I'm not suggesting parents should worry about that, but if your kid does get kidnapped, that's probably what he got kidnapped for. But at the same time, I would still not use that as an excuse to not let your kid play on their own. And of course, a lot of reptilian aliens are not on planet Earth anymore. That's something that'll come up in conversation in this interview, no doubt. I got a couple of questions about that I want to clear up, by the way. Next article, Greece crisis. EU showed contempt for allowing Greeks to vote in a referendum. The Varoufakis reveals Eurogroup's disdain for democracy. Varoufakis, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Reveals Eurogroup's disdain for democracy. Well, democracy, we don't want to be a democracy because that's two wolves in a sheep deciding what's for dinner. We want to be a republic. But anyway, getting back onto the subject, the Greeks, the EU is going to say that Greece should not be allowed to do anything on their own, should not be allowed to leave the EU, and the EU, they should allow the Greeks to vote in whatever thing they want without EU permission, because the EU consolidation of power, of course. Next article, First Amendment Defense Act proposed to protect business owners from SCOTUS ruling on same-sex marriage. Court uses 14th Amendment to undermine the First. Yeah, the 14th Amendment, it does not do what we think it does. It does not make all the rights in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights apply to all the common people of all the several states of America. No, that's the illusionary meaning. It does nothing of the sort. In my interview with Eddie Craig, we actually talk about in great detail what the 14th Amendment actually does. And if you want to look at this in a simple manner, the 14th Amendment was put in the U.S. Constitution to demonize anybody who tries to be a sovereign citizen and try to abolish the idea of sovereign citizenship in the United States of America. So the 14th Amendment does not do what we think it does, and a lot of people are trying to support this First Amendment Defense Act, not realizing that it's not, I guess, designed to screw us over in some ways. I mean, the Supreme Court, you can't really trust them, but designed to protect business owners from some sort of a ruling that a lot of people would be in favor for. I don't know. I got to look into this in greater detail. But one last article here. U.S. citizens signed petition to ban the American flag and replace it with a pyramid to signify the New World Order. Well, pyramids are cool if you use them for metaphysical properties. I recently bought one and I sleep under it, and I can honestly say it's actually helped me in terms of more enhanced dreams and remembering dreams and such and sleeping better. But this is a New World Order pyramid, and we don't want that. And signing a petition to ban the American flag, please, can we not sign that petition? All this American flag demonization and all this stuff about banning the Confederate flag, the Civil War Confederate flag, it's all distraction. And I mean, I'm not really for banning the Confederate flag, because the way I see it, banning the Confederate flag is going to open up a Pandora's box where we can ban all sorts of other flags, and that's going to cause divide and conquer. So I'm not really going to get involved with this personally for that reason. I think maybe encouraging Americans to ban the Confederate flag might backfire for the reason I just gave. But anyway, enough of that. Let's let me make sure I got the right people on here, because I think this might actually be Mark Kimmel, the one with the question mark here. Area code 951. Is this Mark Kimmel?
Hi, Mark.
Is that you? I think I recognize your voice. This is Mark Kimmel.
Hi. I don't think you're recognizing me. I don't think I'm the person you want.
Okay.
Maybe I am.
All right. By the way, are you calling in for a question, or are you just listening? I can get you on for a question later on in the interview.
Okay. I'm just kind of called up, first time listening.
Okay. All right. Sorry. And Mark, I believe you are area code 661 here. Sorry, I didn't remember what number you were going to call in on, but anyway, talk to you later, sir. Bye. Okay. Area code 661. Is this Mark Kimmel?
Hello, Andrew. It's Mark.
How you doing? Glad I finally figured out what number you're at. So, how you doing? I listened to your interview with
I'm
Tom.
good.
It was fascinating.
And how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I just finished a session of sun gazing to prepare me for this radio show. Always like the energies of the sun. Always makes the radio shows go a lot smoother when I get to sun gaze and sit out in nature before the shows. But that felt great. We'll go till 7:30 today, like you wanted. I know you said we might go a little longer if there's people who call in with questions. I don't know if that'll be the case, but I guess we'll start. We don't really need to get into your life story. You have that on your website and all those things you used to do in the past, but then you stopped doing all that to work on the stuff you do now full time. People can look into that on their own, but really want to get into the key stuff, starting with the stuff you discussed in your interview with Andromeda Council contactee Tolek. You talked about the whole thing about Atlantis and Lemuria. Quick question. How many different Atlantises and Lemurias are there? Because people have said there's been many of them. The Atlantis and Lemuria have fallen many times, and the Atlantis and Lemuria that you seem to be referring in that interview with Tolek was not the most recent Atlantis and Lemuria. Am I right?
Andrew, let me take a step back, because before we get to Atlantis and Lemuria, I think we need to set the stage here just a little bit.
No problem.
I think that we need to get some foundation here. And the foundation I'd like to go and present is to talk about the physical, which is the physical universe that all of us see through, in the night sky and through our telescopes and reports from NASA. We see the pictures through the Hubble telescope and all that type of thing. That's all the physical universe. And our friend, Einstein went and discovered a equation, if you will, E equals mc squared. And what that means to me is I have discovered, and this is probably information that might be new on the planet. I don't know. I have not seen it anywhere, so I'm bringing it in for the first time. Anyway, E equals mc squared really talks about the fact that this physical universe is a compression of other energies. So, compression, we are a very dense energy. How did we get here? How did this universe get here? I think this is important. Then we'll get to the Atlantis and Lemuria thing. We got here because way back, before there was a physical universe, there was an incredible non-physical universe. And within that non-physical universe, there are what I call the non-physicals. And these are beings that have no physical bodies. They've never had any physical bodies. And they're powerful enough that they know how to go and manipulate energy in order to compress it to make something solid, like the desk my computer is sitting on, like this body of mine. I look out the window and I see trees and all that type of thing. So they know how to do that. And so those are the non-physicals. They came along way back when, billions of years ago, and they created the physical universe. And they also created the first sentient beings by compressing energy and consciousness, both energy and consciousness. That went along for several billion years, And then they decided what we're going to do is create a very special planet. And we're going to call this planet, I don't know what the name, we call it Earth. And it was intended to be the jewel of the universe, the very most magnificent planet that had ever occurred. So they created Earth as the wonderful, wonderful planet that was supposed to be the showcase for all of the physical universe. And we had people coming here, many visitors from other parts of the universe. Now, these are quasi-physical beings, maybe not solid beings like you and I, but quasi-physical. All right, they came to Earth because Earth in those days was a quasi-physical sphere. It was a sphere of a higher consciousness, a higher dimension. And so that went on for quite a while. And then, according to the information I have, the first settlement that took place on Earth was Lemuria. And that happened about 1 billion years ago. And that's the Lemuria I'll talk about. And I'll come back and address the Lemuria that you're talking about in just a minute. But the Lemurians came here with the idea of settling. They came and they settled a continent out in the Pacific Ocean. It was quite large. It was extended from Australia to California. The only remnants we have of that continent anymore are some of the islands like Hawaii and some of the other Polynesian continent islands. So that was the civilization of Lemuria. Very high consciousness. People who were based in love and unity and were really incredible people. At the same time, there was another planet, and that other planet was called Atlantis. That was the name they gave to their planet. The people of Atlantis also were very high conscious, and they decided that they wanted to play with some of the energies. And they figured out that they could go and compact energy even further. They were trying to go and create a very dense energy on their planet. Well, they had a lot of technology, they had a lot of knowledge, but it got away from them. And Atlantis, a separate planet, was in danger of self-destructing. So a number of the people from Atlanta, not wanting their civilization to go and self-destruct, looked around for a place where they could resettle. And they stumbled upon Earth. Why not go there? So they petitioned the Lemurians. Could we go and come here? And oh, by the way, we won't go and do any more of our energy experiments. We know that those aren't working too well, and our own planet is self-destructing. So can we just come here and we'll live with you? And the Lemurians said, yes, we'll go and allow you to come here, and we'll all cohabitate this wonderful planet Earth. So that happened. It went on for a couple of 100,000 years, and everything was very nice, except that the Atlanteans began to itch about, well, maybe we should do some experiments here. Maybe we should try something else. So they tried to do some of the experiments they had done on their own planet. And the Lemurians said, we're not going to tolerate that. So the Atlanteans then picked up and said, okay, we want to do it anyway, so we're going to move to the other side of the planet and we will establish Atlantis out in the Atlantic Ocean. So Atlantis was established out in the Atlantic Ocean. And the Atlanteans went about experimenting once again. And their idea was to take this semi-physical and make it much more dense and see what they could do about bringing energies into a density. So the high energy, the high consciousness of the whole planet began to go and erode as a result of the experiments that the Atlanteans were doing. At that time, it became very evident that things were not going well, because Their experiments produced incredible earthquakes and tsunamis and shifting of the tectonic plates to the extent that the Lemurians said, we can't hold on to our civilization, and they basically slipped below the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. The Atlanteans thought, well, okay, they're gone. We'll just continue, and we'll see what we can make out of this. Now, these are not necessarily bad people. They're not evil people. They were simply trying to go and make experiments that led to their own self-destruction. So then the planet Earth at that time got into serious trouble, and Atlantis sunk in beneath the ocean. And I will call that, for lack of better terminology, the fall of consciousness. So the higher energies forced both civilizations to terminate, and Earth was in the process of self-destructing. It looked as though it was going to go the way of Atlantis, which was self-destruction. At that point in time, the non-physicals who had originally created Earth said, all right, we're going to stabilize things. We're going to put this into an energy deep freeze. And that was what happened about 500 million years ago. Back to the question you posed, Andrew, and that is, there are other stories about Atlantis and Lemuria. Excuse me, just one second. The civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis went and self-destructed, if you will, and that was millions of years ago. But the energies that were associated with Atlantis and Lemuria did not disappear from the planet. Lemurians had a very loving civilization, one which was very peaceful. The Atlanteans had a civilization which was one of trying to dominate the natural course of things. And those energies persisted and continued on the planet way past the deep freeze, if you will. And so when it came time to go and to restart the planet, and it restarted about 500 million years ago, where after it had been stabilized, the non-physicals said, all right, we're going to create a very dense form here and see if we can go and use that as a basis from which we want to go and increase the densities, and we'll get Earth back to where it was a million years ago, millions of years ago, which is this beautiful, wonderful planet. So they created, and for lack of a better name, third dimension. What we understand as third dimension, this rigid form which we have, rigidness in terms of third dimension, is solid, it's very stable, and they said, okay, that's the dimension we're going to work with. And then they created third dimension humans to fit into that. So those were our very, very distant ancestors who were faced with going and operating within this dense third dimension. Now, what happened, of course, is that the energy from Lemuria and Atlantis persisted. It was still present. So now we're going to take for just a moment and talk about time, because time is much different for us here in third dimension than time in the non-physical arena. So the information I have is from the non-physicals. Call them the angels, archangels, non-physicals, celestials, whatever name you want to apply to them. They're the ones that are telling me this information. However, time is different there in that they don't have linear time. They have simultaneous time. So what they see is everything in terms of events, not time. So for me, to answer your question, these other stories about Atlantis being maybe destructing 12,000 years ago, 25,000 years ago, and that type of thing can all be attributed to the whole idea of we third-dimensional humans are keeping track of time one way, and the non-physicals, the celestials, are keeping track of time a different way. So rather than having multiple instances of Lemuria and Atlantis, it's strictly one instance of Lemuria and Atlantis. But the memories, the memories of the physical beings are very much, it's like the past lives are coming into the current. And people are remembering, well, I remember I was at Atlantis, or I was at Lemuria, and that wasn't that long ago, or it didn't seem like it was that long ago. Besides that, we can't remember back, 500 million years ago. So we'll just say linear time looks like, about 25,000 years. So does that help a little bit? Or about just confuse things?
Oh, no, well, some other people who have subscribed to the theory that Atlantis and Lemuria had different versions that existed over the course of millions of years, and there were many different rises and falls of Atlantis, might find what you're saying a little confusing, but I don't see any reason to think that you're wrong or mistaken, but I don't really think this is something that's worth debating. It's just that other people would say otherwise about it. But since you mentioned time, there's a couple of things about time that I would like to address.
Sure.
So what is time? Well, first, I remember Tolek saying in other interviews that his contacts have told him that there is a direct correlation between gravity and time. Now, that raises the whole can of worms into what gravity is. I mean, many mainstream scientists say that the particle known as a graviton creates gravity, but then again, we don't really know if there is such a thing as a graviton, and of course gravity is given a lot more credit for bending and warping the universe than it should be, because it's electromagnetism that they should be talking about more. But again, there's a conspiracy to cover up the extent to which electromagnetism influences our universe. But I'm sort of digressing here. Another thing about time is, I remember Indigo Child Matthias De Stefano saying that time in the way we see it in the third dimension can be thought of as a measure of the decay of matter, or in some people might perceive that as the aging of matter. Like we age, our bodies age over time, things decay over time. That in this dimension, time is a measure of that decay or that aging. And well, I guess I'd like you to address that, and also address the correlation between time and gravity. And I do have one more question about time, but I'm not going to bog you down with three things in one sitting. So just the two things there, and then I'll get to the other thing.
Well, let's look at historical time, first of all. And maybe one of the measures of historical time is the geological record we have. If you go and you go down into the bottom of the Grand Canyon, you'll see layer upon layer upon layer of sedimentary rock going back millions of years ago. And I mean a long time ago, even much predating the dinosaurs and all that, millions of years ago. And so scientists go and look at that and they say, well, this Earth has been around, 265 million years or something like that. Which incidentally, to me, lends credence to the fact that this Lemuria and Atlantis thing happened a long time ago, because I cannot imagine two continents the size of Atlantis and Lemuria sinking under the ocean 12,000 years ago, and everything is just hunky-dory, and we got trees and we got people and all that kind of stuff. So to me, the geological evidence of time is a better measure of what happened historically. And it happened over millions of years. Now, as to the connection between time and gravity, Andrew, I'm just not the one to comment on that. So I'm going to let that one go. I would like to comment on linear time as we know it on a day-to-day basis. My understanding is that linear time, as we know it, which is, we think of seconds and minutes and all that type of thing, was invented in order to give us a chance to go and cope with this dense third dimension. And that was, again, created by the non-physicals who were thinking, oh, here's these poor, struggling humans. We better give them some idea of how to keep track of yesterday and the day before, what's coming in the future. And, okay, how about something called linear time? And it's kind of like, oh, a few hours ago this happened, maybe tomorrow, this is what I better plan for. Here's a minute, here's a second, here's a microsecond. So we've had the benefit of this linear time. Now, as we go and move to a higher and higher vibration, all of a sudden this linear time begins to change, begins to go away, begins to evaporate. And we're stuck with something closer to simultaneous time, which, if you stop and think about it, it's like things happened yesterday, but it doesn't seem like it's that long ago. And, well, what about tomorrow? It's almost here. And so we have some inklings as to what simultaneous time is all about. So time is, and I'm sure you've experienced it also. Sometimes time seems to go fast. Sometimes it seems to go slow. Your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for giving your take on that. One quick thing that needs to be clarified. A lot of people say time is speeding up, but other people have said, no, that's a misconception. It's not that it's speeding up. It's that it's moving closer to being exposed as an illusion, and as time becomes more compressed and more, we're realizing that it's an illusion, that creates the illusion that it's speeding up when it's not actually speeding up, but still, people are still going to say it's speeding up. But one other thing about time, Tolek, in that interview that he did, that video that he made, like the beginning of 2014, he talked about how his Andromeda Council contacts, for them, 1 day equals 75 Earth years. Now, he's often said that when you get to the fourth dimension and above, time does not exist. Well, time doesn't exist as we know it. There is no sensation of time there. But then again, when someone hears him say that 1 day to those higher dimensional, higher density beings is 75 Earth years to us humans, well, some will hear that and say, well, of course time exists for them. It's just completely different in terms of what it feels like. So how can you say that time is an illusion, is realized as an illusion in the fourth dimension and above, when he's basically shown in that interview that the whole 1 day equals 75 Earth years to them shows that, well, they must follow some form of time, if you get what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, to me, we have not you and me, but to me, we have a communication between ourselves and those beings that interact with us who are of a higher frequency. In my book, I explained that I have spent many, many lifetimes on Andromeda, one of the planets of Andromeda. And in that particular case there, they are a higher dimension civilization. And so they look at time differently than we do. So when the Toles his connections there to the Andromeda Council make a statement by 1 minute is 75 years or something like that, it's a communications problem, because I know that I have had a lot of trouble with time my whole life here, trying to figure out, simply because I come from a place that we tell time differently, that's all. And so I think it's more of a communications problem for those beings who are of a higher consciousness, trying to explain to us what this stuff called time is. And they go and they look at what we're doing here, and they can go and grasp what we're going to go and do for an entire lifetime, and they can do that in 1 minute. And they say, oh, that was a nice lifetime. or they can go and say, okay, we can see what's going to happen in the future. We can't tell you exactly when. We all know how many future events have been predicted, and they just don't happen. That's because the people that are getting that information are getting it from beings of a higher consciousness, and they just don't tell time the same way we do. So to me, it's a communications problem more than anything else, and that's what I have been told is that, okay, Mark, yes, you can deal with time, but it's different than it is in the higher dimensions. Which solves nothing, Andrew.
Well, thanks for trying. Speaking of time again, well, actually, there's so much about time as much as it is about ultra-terrestrials. I like that word. The ultra, it means beyond. And when you're talking about ultra-terrestrials, you're talking about like really, really high consciousness, high density extraterrestrials, sort of. And I want one thing that I want to discuss about this is, well, I hate to pick on Tolek about this, but I've always been one of his biggest supporters, and he's certainly not the first one. I mean, like people like George Kavaslis, Alex Collier, Greg Braden, Ian Zellungold have all made predictions about when we would ascend into higher consciousness, and they were all wrong. So Tolek is certainly not the first one there, but he has said that the reason we did not become like crystalline fourth dimensional beings in January 2014 was because the creator gods at the top, we were never on that timeline. We're not on that timeline. And the reason we weren't on that timeline is because the ultra-terrestrials, the creator gods at the top, the really head honcho ultra-terrestrials, decided that it wasn't time because not enough people were awake. What confuses me about this is Tolek was only relaying information that his Andromeda Council contactee friends were telling him. What people would find confusing about this is his contacts would have seen, like in a January 2014 time period, we would have ascended, but then when that time period came, they must have been just as confused as we are when the creator gods at the top decided this isn't going to happen. So that makes you wonder, how is it that all along those higher, the Andromeda Council contacts could have been seeing that we'll ascend when it was not meant to be in the end? How could they see that when it wasn't meant to be? If you could maybe answer that.
Well, let me approach it this way. I've had a lot of contact with the non-physicals and a lot of contact with the ETs. So ETs, ultra-terrestrials. To me, ultra-terrestrials are the non-physicals. So the ETs and the non-physicals. When I go and receive information, and that's the same for Tolek, it's the same for anyone who is getting information from, it's the same for Alex Collier, it's the same, Greg Braden, anybody. It is processed by our human mind, and it's based on our background, our conditioning, a lot of things. And so what comes out in terms of our speaking, in terms of our writing, that type of thing is based upon our ability to really receive that information and translate it without going and putting our particular twist to it. So that's a piece of what's going on here, and that's not to go and diminish anything that anybody else has done, because I do the same thing. So all of us are subject to using our human mind to take information that is not from humans and try to make sense out of it and then speak it or write it. And it doesn't always come out real accurate. There's always a twist. So in terms of picking dates, when I first started this about 20 years ago, I would make predictions about, such and such a thing is going to happen on December 3rd, or such and such a thing is going to happen on March 14th. And I was invariably wrong. Those dates would come and go and nothing would happen. And I would say, I wonder why that happened. And so I have stopped going and predicting, period. in terms of hard dates. Now, I understand there are people who are doing it, and that's fine. I simply will go and the word that my contacts use is soon, which is a word I just really don't like at all. But, they'll tell me it's going to happen soon, Mark. Well, is this a soon in terms of linear time, or is this a soon in terms of celestial time? So all of these predictions of the future, they don't come to pass simply because the higher dimensional individuals, the non-physicals, see things in simultaneous time and have trouble translating that into specific dates. And so, again, I just don't do those anymore because I've been bitten 2 times. And, everybody was all obsessed with December of 2012. And that came and went. And not a lot of the things that were predicted to happen happened. There were some big things that happened that nobody predicted. But once again, we have a time prediction there that simply didn't come to pass. So I think we have to understand that we are this island, if you will, of physicality. And we're immersed in this great ocean of the non-physical. And they're doing their best to try to go and translate something to us so that we'll have some idea of what's going on. And things just don't work that way. We have too many individual decisions going on. We have too many influences. We have off-planet influences. We have free will decisions that are being made here on the planet. And quite frankly, I take the position that I am sitting back and I'm saying, well, we'll see.
Well, I guess that's a appropriate way of looking at it, but I have to address something else that I don't want to cause a conflict about this, but Lily Earthling, one of my previous guests, told me that ascension as people think of it. Now, some people say ascension's a bad word because you're not ascending, you're just moving closer to the point of infinite consciousness, so you're not ascending over anything, but we're just, for the sake of simplicity, we'll use the word ascension. Lily Earthling said, ascension, as people like you, Tolek, and others say it will happen, like we'll ascend into either the 4th dimension or maybe we'll skip over the 4th and go straight to the 5th. There's a debate there, but don't worry about that debate. The point is, she says ascension will not happen. Earth's organic timeline will not allow for it. The only way that you can ascend is when your DNA skin suit dies. Then and only then will your consciousness have the ability to ascend to a higher level. And I'm sure that a lot of people are going to disagree with her on that. I mean, just think about it for a moment. Let's imagine for a moment that at one instantaneous instant, everybody, all 7 billion or how many people there are on planet Earth, discovered that they are infinite. Space and time are illusions. We're all infinite consciousness. Everything exists because our consciousness tells us it exists. I could certainly imagine that if everybody realized that instantaneously, then Earth would instantaneously have to, for lack of a better phrase, morph into like a crystalline body simply because everybody realized that this matrix that we live in is a matrix and we're not supposed to be like this. But Lily Earthling said, no, that's not the way it works. Orthogonic's timeline doesn't work like that. For all intents and purposes, you got to wait till your DNA skin suit dies before ascension can happen. So, for lack of a better question, Mark, do you agree or disagree with Lily Earthling?
I am seeing a number of people that I know, a number of people that I know real well, and people that I don't know quite so well. And I am watching them go and assume a higher dimensional frequency, while at the same time retaining the outward appearance of a physical body. And my understanding of the way this works is that we are slowly, individual by individual. This is not a mass consciousness thing going on. This is very much one person at a time. We have a person here, a person there. And they are slowly, very slowly, and sometimes it's painful. I know I've gone through some of that. It's very uncomfortable. So you are slowly going and assuming a crystalline body. And that means that the energy itself is changing. The physical body, the outward appearance, from a DNA standpoint, from a medical standpoint, remains the same. But I can tell you from personal experience that once the light body begins to go and invade the physical body, they're not the same. So this is happening all over the planet. There are people that understand what I'm talking about. There are people that are following other traditions. I think that at this point in time, the number that I'm being told right now is that there are probably several 100,000 people on the planet who are now functioning at a higher state of consciousness with one of these light bodies in their physical body. They are fundamentally changed. They are radiating this incredible energy that they have to other people and slowly waking up all the people they come in contact with. So, no, I know from personal experience that the DNA can go and be modified. I know that the DNA can be improved. I know that we can go and assume additional energies within our bodies, that we can go and move our physical bodies to a new place of being. We can raise our consciousness, which is a separate thing now from the physical body. We can go and raise our consciousness to where we are functioning at a higher state of consciousness, where we are becoming more and more enlightened, if you will. I don't like the word ascension because that to me speaks like we're ascending and we're leaving. No, we're not leaving. We're staying right here because that's our job. Our job is to stay here with these higher states of consciousness and help everybody else get there also. Back to you.
Good job answering. You explained it pretty well, I think. Let's switch gears. Talk about law of attraction. I noticed inside your book here, it says here, to Jim Self, Joan Walker, Archangels, and Ascended Masters. Jim Self, I had him as a guest on my show, and the interview, unfortunately, got off to a little bit of a sour note because he listened to me do my news segment. I was getting my news, as usual, from Alex Jones and company at InfoWars. And when he came on the show, the first thing he said was, okay, first of all, where are you going with this? And I was like, okay, well, where did that come from? And he was like, well, the stuff you're talking about in your news segment, you do realize by virtue of the law of attraction, you, by talking about and obsessing about these powers that be and these malevolent entities and such, you're giving them your power. And instantly I was like, whoa, hang on, Jim, have you ever watched the Mark Passio 7-hour documentary, New Age Deception and the Suppression of the Sacred Masculine? And he told me, no, I missed that one. What's that all about? And I told him, well, in that 7-hour presentation, well, among other things, there were at least 2 occasions where Mark Passio said the law of attraction does not work like that. And he was when he said that, what he was basically trying to say is all those people who say you should not try to combat and go after and maybe even use physical force to try to stop the powers that be because you're allegedly giving them the power. They don't know what they're talking about when you say that. You cannot save the world by going out in nature and meditating for 8 hours a day and expect to save the world. And Mark made it very clear in that interview that someone who talks about, exposes the evil deeds of the powers that be, and tries to confront the powers that be for the purpose of stopping and putting an end to the powers that be's evil will always have a better chance of defeating the powers that be than someone who decides not to worry about the powers that be at all out of fear that thinking and obsessing about them is going to feed them and help them get more power. Now, this is obviously very significant to you, I'm guessing, because I remember in your interview with Andromeda Council Contactee Tolek recently, you said that if you get really angry and really mad at the evil forces and the powers that be, you're going to feed them and give them your energy. However, you did not clarify when you said that whether you were trying to say that it's okay to expose them and talk about them and try to go after them if you're doing that for the purpose of beating them for the sake of helping humanity and putting an end to fear and enhancing love. So this whole debate over whether or not you should try to obsess and talk about the evil agendas of and beat the powers that be for the purpose of helping out humanity spread love and suppress fear, do you believe that anyone who says you shouldn't do that is confused about how the law of attraction works?
How much time do we have?
Okay, we have 40 minutes.
No,
40 minutes.
Here we go. It's very interesting. As you were doing your introduction, I recalled way back when, and I don't know exactly what year this was, but I did an interview with a person like yourself on a small radio station. Didn't have the internet at that point in time, no blog talk radio. And so this gentleman was very kind. He invited me on. It was a small radio station, and we talked about ETs, and we talked about a lot of things like we're talking about today. And the manager or the owner of the radio station fired him on the spot as soon as the interview was over with. And so he lost his job simply because I was talking about this kind of stuff. Josh is still a good friend, and I admire the way he does things, but unfortunately he lost his job. So I was listening to your introduction there. I'm thinking, whoa. Andrew, my approach to this is I have studied history. I have looked at all of the efforts over the last, let's just stick with recorded history, okay? We look at recorded history and we see that, from my perspective, there have been a lot of instances in which people have tried to go and correct things by fighting against the establishment. And that's happened over and over again. From my perspective, what happens there is you replace one government with another government. You replace one dictator with another dictator. In the first instance, they look pretty good. Okay, so you throw out the bad guy and put somebody else in there. The only problem is that a few years later, you're right back where you're starting from. So from my perspective, I don't see that fighting against the establishment, however you want to define them, whether you want to find them as a one world government or the government of the United States or the United Nations or the terrorists and all this type of thing, has ever produced anything other than just a continuing fight. Then there's another aspect of this, and that is we know from the studies of the reptilians and the Zetas and the Anunnaki that they literally feed off the energy of fear and violence. That's who they are, and they love that. So to the extent that they can go and encourage all of us to generate more fear, more violence, more judgment, more denseness, they love it because then we are playing into their hands. So I guess to the extent that I see this, I say yes, the law of attraction is very, very, very key to our survival as a species. And I think that what we go and put out, we get back. For instance, I have been at this now for 19 years, and I have been putting out very benevolent feelings. I've had lots of contact experiences from ETs, contact experiences from physicals. And because of the benevolent energy I'm putting out, I have never had a really negative experience. I just haven't. So to me, the law of attraction is alive and well. I guess I would agree in general with Jim Self that we're not going to go and overcome anything. Not really. We can do it in the short term. I mean, we can throw the guys out and replace them with somebody that looks really good. The only problem is that we haven't changed the fundamental structures, the fundamental energies. Nothing has really changed. All we've done is substitute one guy for another guy, one structure for another structure. So I guess I'm a big fan of the law of attraction. I think that the way in which this is all going to come out is that, yes, we're slowly, one person at a time, going to be raising our energies. We're going to be, I'm watching it happen right now. I have contact with a lot of people all over the planet, people that listen to these radio shows, this Blog Talk Radio, this type of thing, and they contact me and they say, Mark, thank you. You're helping because you're getting the message out that my individual energy, the way in which I live my life, is really helping. And I say, yes, that's my understanding of what's going on here. So back to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Mark. Now we got to talk about a rather sensitive subject, the subject of treating others the way you want to be treated. That's another thing I remember you discussing with Tolek, and I have gotten a lot of criticism from fans and supporters for seemingly violating this, but I don't really look at it as a violation. The fact is, I've often gotten a bad rap for being anti-sheeple. I mean, I've always, not always, but often said that one of the key reasons why Earth continues to remain a prison planet matrix, in spite of the fact that so many reptilians and evil forces have been gotten rid of and taken care of, is because so many of the common people in the general public, they're so paradigmatic, they're so fearful, and they're so stupid, and they will not believe something shocking or disturbing, even if the evidence shows they have no choice but to believe it. And that's the reason it's so easy for governments to get away with their conspiracies and secrets being exposed. And I have actually said, flat out acknowledged, that I do not believe that someone has the right to be a sheeple because, simply put, the more sheeple there are on planet Earth, the harder life is going to be for all of us who are awake. You have the right, I assert you do, yes, you do indeed have the right to do anything that does not result in you causing harm or intending to cause harm to another person or property through either negligence or deliberate intent. But if you think about it, if you're being a sheeple, you are harming society because, like I just said, the more sheeple there are, the harder it's going to be for the rest of us who are awake to overcome the powers that be and get this planet out of the prison planet state that it is. And that raises a question of, when is it okay for people who are awake to hassle and harass the sheeple and tell them, listen, dumbass, wake up out of your trance. You're making life miserable for all of us. If you don't wake up, I'm going to make life really miserable for you, and you're going to find out what life is going to be like if the powers that be take over. Now, I'm not going to say we should do to the sheeple what guy in the movie They Live did to his friend who didn't put on the glasses. Now, that's going way overboard. But I would not hesitate to say, okay, maybe a little slap in the face of the sheeple might be what they deserve to wake them up. And anyone out there who says you're violating the golden rule of treating people the way that you want to be treated when you say that, well, my response to that would be hey, if I was a sheeple and I was making life hard for everybody, and if someone gave me a nice slap in the face to wake me up, then I got what I deserve for making life miserable for everybody else who's awake. So don't you tell me that I'm violating no stinking golden rule when I say we should harass and hassle the sheeple for making life hard for all of us. Now, I'm sure the trolls are going to have a field day with what I just said here, and a lot of people are probably thinking, oh my God, you didn't actually just say what you just said. But hey, I'm sure you understand where I'm coming from. There's a lot of other people who just want the damn sheeple to wake up so we can all ascend. So do you feel that it's a violation of the golden rule to hassle and harass sheeple into waking up to make life easier for all of us?
Let me come at it this way, Andrew. From my perspective, people live in a comfort zone. And, we have people that are alcoholics, and they live in a comfort zone of being an alcoholic until something happens to a few of them, and they decide to go and stop doing that to themselves. And they go to AA or whatever treatment they get, and some of them actually, and some of the most wonderful people I know are former alcoholics. But people live in a comfort zone, and it doesn't matter whether they have wonderful lives, pleasant, they're very wealthy and they can do whatever they want to, or they're very poor and they're roaming the streets. They live in a comfort zone, and our media, the standard media that we have, goes and attempts to keep everybody in that comfort zone. It doesn't matter whether it's television or books or newspapers and so on. It basically tells people, be satisfied with who you are. And so to the extent that people are happy in their comfort zone, I guess I say, okay, fine, stay in your comfort zone. However, is that really, really, really where you want to be? And so from my standpoint, I would like to go and work with them individually to say, is that serving you? Is that really what you want to do with your life? Is stay in that comfort zone. And, I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs for a number of years. And the fun thing about working with entrepreneurs is these are people who are challenging the status quo. Wonderful people. I love them. It was a great privilege to work with all of them. So they're out there challenging the status quo. They're out there challenging the structures, the large corporations, all that type of thing. So they're getting out of their comfort zone. So I've watched people move out of a comfort zone. So I can see that it has to be some sort of an inner motivation that makes somebody want to get up and do something different. A lot of times, like the alcoholic, it is that they finally get to the place where that comfort zone is not serving them anymore. So it has to be a self-motivation. As to your proposition here about confronting them, I have never had any success in confronting someone in terms of changing them. And what we're talking about here is, can you really change somebody by getting in their face? And, I think if they see you as a higher authority, sometimes they'll sit back and listen. But I also know, based upon my experience long before I got into this whole business of writing and talking about ETs and ultra-terrestrials and non-physicals, I had very little success excuse me, with trying to change people by confronting them. In fact, it's got their back up as much as anything else. Now, I also agree with you that we have gone and created the situation we have here. Call them the sheeples, call them whatever you want to. But we're creating this situation. So the only way we're going to get out of it is by changing what we're creating. So I'm all for change. I think it's very possible. I see it happening one person at a time. I don't see mass change happening. I don't see, ships descending, the ETs coming to save us. They have told me repeatedly, we're not going to do that. I don't see some other grand event that's going to happen. I see change happening one person at a time. But to me, I see the change happening from within people who really want to change. And so, maybe on occasion confronting them and saying, hey, maybe it's time to wake up. That works with some people. I'm not sure that works with everybody, but hey, maybe you are an agent for change, and from that standpoint, I applaud what you're doing. And obviously your listeners like what you're doing because they continue to come back. It's a very popular program.
Thank you very much, and I do hope more of the information I give on this program does wake a lot of people up. But let's switch gears. Some of the stuff in your book here, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about what UFOs are, because you do talk a lot about that. In my interview with George Chrysalis, he did make it clear that UFOs, what they are, is a percentage factor. They're not all the same, but the majority of UFOs that we see are actually in some way connected to the military-industrial complex. And John Lear, in my interview with him, he did say that every single military-industrial complex UFO has some extraterrestrial nexus connection to it. So that would mean, by default, the vast majority of UFOs that we see in the sky are extraterrestrial UFOs of some sort. But in regards to the UFO stuff that you talk about, trying to clear up all the misinformation and all the other things that you do regarding UFOs, what are some of the key things you want to like to tell us about that?
Well, my understanding is that a number, in fact, the largest percentage of UFOs that we see nowadays, say in the last 20, 30 years, are man-made. They are the result of reverse engineering of we have figured out how to go and make a flying ship out of conventional 3D material, metal, plastics, and that type of thing, so that we're fairly capable of mimicking what a true ET craft is all about. Now, a number of the people that I communicate, the ETs, are aboard a very large ship by the name of Athabantian. And Athabantian is in orbit around Earth. It's a little bit further out than the moon. It is in a higher dimension so that it's not visible to our senses. And the way that Athabantian was created is that the people of Kimmel, the planet which I was on before I came here, there were about 1 million of them that got together, and they basically created it through their intention. They created Athabantian, which is a ship now that is capable of holding about 5,000 people. So my understanding, and I get this from a lot of different communications I've had, is that the majority of the true ET ships are living entities of some sort. I know that Athabantian is a living entity. It volunteered to be here. So it was created through intention. It is a higher dimension ship. We're looking at fourth, fifth dimension. That's the beings that are aboard Athabantian. So we have to draw a contrast here between the military and the corporations that have attempted to mimic these higher dimension ships by making them out of metal and that type of thing, when in reality these higher dimension ships are not made in that particular way. Now, we go back to the crash at Roswell. Yes, that particular ship had material. We've seen evidence that we've seen testimony. We don't have any of the materials anymore because they've all been scrounged up and hidden away somewhere. But it would appear that they were made out of some fantastic material way beyond our technology. So that was re-engineered, reverse engineered. And we now have the ships that have been fabricated using some of that technology. So to me, there is a difference between the ships that are flying around through the atmosphere at this point in time. And we don't see so many of them. If you notice, we don't have real clear pictures. We have some. We don't have a lot. And that's because taking pictures of these higher dimensional ships, well, there's no photographic evidence of those. So to me, there's a dichotomy here. There's a separation between those ships that are the reverse engineered and the ships that are the true ET ships.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's move on to some clarification in regards to the reptilian aliens, because it has been said by Tolek and also his ET contact friend Ray Kusalandich, who I did have on my show, that many of the reptilian bases have been taken out, and by default that means a lot of gray alien bases have been taken out as well, because the Orion and Zeta Grays, they are subordinate to the Alpha Draconin and the Hydra reptilians. But a little confusion about this. A lot of people seem to be confused as to how exactly a reptilian alien masquerades as a human. There seems to be at least two different ways that they would do this. Tolek on his website, he has an article talking about how the reptilians, they are normally a lower fourth dimensional astral entity. They lower their vibration down to a third dimensional level, and then after they do that, they put the holographic mask of a third dimensional human around them. However, other people have said that there's another way that a reptilian would masquerade as a human. They would hijack an empty vessel human body. What that means is that, like, they probably do this during a satanic ritual. The empty vessel human body would have a reptilian alien attach itself to the lower chakras of the empty vessel human body, and then that reptilian alien would control the human body, not because the reptilian alien put a holographic mask of a human around it, but because the reptilian alien hijacked the human body by attaching itself to the chakra system. Now, even though, like Ray Kusalanich in my interview with him, he said there's only like 200 or so reptilian aliens left on this planet, but a lot of people who have studied the work of researchers like David Icke have heard him and some of his sources say that people like George Herbert Walker Bush, Queen Elizabeth, Hillary Clinton, Henry Kissinger, David Rockefeller, they're all reptilian aliens masquerading as humans. So that raises the question, in that like 200 or so reptilians that Ray Kusalanich says are still on this planet, is he including those people that I've just named, those political and corporate leaders that I just named, who are said to be reptilian aliens masquerading as humans? And how exactly are the reptilian aliens masquerading as humans? Is it one of the two ways I mentioned, or is it some other way? So could you perhaps clear up the confusion here?
Yes, Andrew, in one of my earlier books, the book describes the cloning process, and the non-beneficial ETs have the ability to create clones. And the way I see it is that they don't go and invade bodies, that type of thing. They have the ability to create a clone, an exact replica, cell by cell, of a human body. And so they can substitute that clone for anybody they want to. And I'm not going to get into personalities here, but I'm fairly sure that has happened a number of times, where these clones, now the clones are biological entities. They have everything except a human soul. So they are exact replicas. They have a limited life, which then causes them to have to be re-energized and reprogrammed about once a year, something like that, or more often. And so that's one way in which this happens, is the creation of clones. The second way this happens is that each of us humans has a soul. And it is possible for a human body, a healthy human body, to be invaded by a second soul. And we know this because there are such a thing as multiple personalities. And these multiple personalities are people that have more than one soul entity in a single body. So sometimes this is very well done, and the non-beneficial soul can take over and run the life. More often than not, it doesn't work too well, and we wind up with these multiple personality people, which is a very sad situation. But, and these people are confined, or a lot of psychiatrists are employed trying to cure that particular situation. But to me, the presence of multiple soul entities in a human body can happen. So that, to me, is one explanation, and the cloning is a second. So that's where I'm coming from, and a lot of famous personalities, I believe, have been cloned, and the original person taken out. That's described in a lot of detail, again, in one of my earlier books, One, O-N-E. You can find it on Amazon, or you can find it at my website, Cosmic Paradigm, and we go into some detail there as to how that all works.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to clear up some confusion about archangels, because in your book here on the table of contents, it says you talk about messages from archangels and also Earth history in regards to archangels. A lot of people have talked about how archangels might actually be malevolent, because you see the arch in the name, arch as in archon, as in malevolent entity. And other people say, no. There might be malevolent archangels, but there are the good archangels like Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, Raphael, and all the other archangels that they often talk about. They're not bad guys, they're good guys. And all those people who say that archangels are bad because the word arch is relates to the word archon. Well, I don't know. Maybe the people that say that are right, but they're referring to a different group of archangels that are the opposite of what the good archangels are. So could you perhaps clear up the confusion on good and bad archangels?
A lot of people who live in this wonderful world of ours of duality, where there's good and bad, take that duality and project it onto everything. So they see good and they see bad in everything, not only on this planet, but everywhere else. My information is that there is a limited amount, and it is only in this particular sector of the Milky Way where this whole subject of duality exists. It does not extend to the non-physicals. So anybody that is projecting good and bad onto the non-physicals is very, very badly mistaken. I've had now a lot of interaction with the non-physicals, call them archangels, call them celestials, whatever name you want to put to them. I have never had anything but love and benevolence and all of those higher consciousness interactions with them. Never once have I had any ugly or bad or any kind of that. And so I think, even the stories out of the Bible and other types of stories about the bad ETs and that type of thing, those are a projection from people's having lived dark lives here and seeing everything dark. And I just don't go there. I don't see that. I will not go there at all. I see everything at this point in time as a projection of light, and I'm very happy to go and live that way. I understand there are such things as draconians and Zetas and Anunnaki And I also listened very carefully to Tolek, who assures me that almost all of the bases of those off-planet beings have been eliminated. I do know that there's a lot of, because I have met some of them, that there are a lot of humans that would very much like to keep the status quo because they like being in charge, they like being wealthy and powerful, and they no longer have their Illuminati caretakers, if you will, or directors, but they're still going at it, and so be it. That's just the way it is. That also will disappear because as we raise the consciousness of individuals all around the planet, they will not be able to stay here. They simply will not tolerate what's happening. Back to you, Andrew.
Hopefully the sooner the day will come and the better. All right, we got time for, I guess, 2 more questions, and then we'll call it an interview. First thing, you said in the beginning of the interview here that the Earth was basically created as the jewel of the universe, and Akashic Records reader Andrew Bartis, who's perhaps my most frequently used source of information on this show, he has said that the Earth was created as a seed planet. I seem to be drawing a blank in regards to what number dimension he said, and I know in your interview with Tolek you say you don't like to give numbers when you talk about dimensions and densities, but I believe Andrew Bartis said that Earth was created as a 7-dimensional seed planet, and that kind of conflicts with what you said in your Tolek interview, that it was a 12-dimension jewel of the universe. Now, it goes without saying that how many dimensions there are, how many dimensions a person says like the universe is made of is dependent on their own personal view of the universe. Like in my interview with George Kavaslis, he says this is a 12-dimension universe, but other people often say it's a 22-dimension universe. And when I talked to George about that, he told me, well, come to think of it, there is like a section in my 12-dimensional construct that I could imagine someone might see as 10 dimensions in one. So maybe that's why some people say it's a 22-dimension universe. But regardless of whatever number you give, Bartis, I believe he did say it was a 7-dimensional seed planet it was created as. And what's significant about that is that some people have said that once you get up to the 7th dimension, there's no more service to self. I mean, the 5th dimension and the 6th dimension, they're a lot more wonderful than the 3rd dimension that we are in, but even there in the 6th dimension, there is some degree of service to self behavior. But once you get to the 7th dimension and above, it's strictly service to others, and as you get higher and higher, the service to others becomes a lot more prominent and a lot more nicer and a lot more wonderful than it would be in the 7th dimension. So do you subscribe to that idea that once you get to the 7th dimension, there is no more service to self?
Well, first of all, when Earth was first created, it was a 12th dimension planet. 12th dimension is the highest dimension where there is any resemblance to physical form. So a 12th dimension planet is a quasi-physical form. Once you get above 12th dimension, and I have been told that there are probably 65 different dimensions, if you want to take it that direction, or 65 densities, however you want to talk about it. That's strictly in the non-physical. Because, you see, this physical universe is less than 1% of all there is. Less than 1%. So we have this physical universe, and there are portions of the physical universe which are 12, 11, 10, all the way down to 5 and 4. So Earth fell from the 12th dimension down to the 7th dimension. And that's when it began to fall apart. And that's when they went and had to go and put it in a deep freeze to stabilize it. And that's when 3rd dimension was created, which is a support. So now, as far as 7th dimension goes, when I arrive at 7th dimension, when I put myself in 7th dimension, I am no longer an individual. I am no longer, it's not a matter of service to self or service to others. That does not enter into the picture at all. Seventh dimension is the place where you begin to go and lose all physicalness. You lose it. Now you become less physical, all the way up to the 12th dimension. That's the easiest way to think about it.
Okay, but like I said, what some people see as like a dimension is what someone else might see as a different numbered dimension or density. So it all depends on your view. And George Cavazos did make that clear with me in my interview with him. But all right, one more subject, then I guess we'll call it a night. The future of humanity. Now, a lot of people say there's going to be something big happening this upcoming September, like on the 24th of September. Some say an asteroid is going to hit the Atlantic Ocean, although I did email Tolek about that, and he told me his ET contacts told him that they're going to make sure that that asteroid does not hit the Earth. A lot of people are talking about the Pope coming to America in September. That's going to be very significant, and some people like Matt Kahn in his interview with Helene Lipson of In5D Radio said that he sees 1/3 of humanity resonating with fifth dimension consciousness on the 28th of September, which is the day of a lunar eclipse. It's the last eclipse in a tetrad, by the way. I can imagine why that would be significant. And also the whole thing about 2017, a lot of people say 2017 will be a completely different time period for Earth. In my interview with Franco De Nicola, he talked about that's when we'll be in 5D, and in my interview with Ray Kusalandich, he actually did say that his ET contacts have told him that they will show themselves, because you said earlier in this interview your ET contacts have said that we're not going to show ourselves, but he said no, in 2017 they will, and they're going to try to do whatever they can to change the timelines of Earth so that we humans will have like crystalline bodies by that time period. However, Bashar, ET contactee Bashar, I had the chance to interview him. Well, I interviewed Daryl Anka at the In5D Cosmic Awakening Conference in January 2014. Daryl Anka is the contactee for Bashar, and I told him, so now that like the Earth's core is in the fourth dimension, when is all of the Earth going to be in the fourth dimension where we can enjoy all the things that a fourth dimensional human enjoys that Tolek talked about in his interview with Alfred Weber, like in 2011? And Bashar said, no, you already are in the fourth dimension because you exist in 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. I'm presuming you mean the density. He said there is a difference between dimension and density. He said you could think of a dimension as a country at different densities as states within that country. And he said that humanity will remain in physicality for another 1,000 years. In that time, you will move in and out of different densities. And that flat out flies in the face of what people have said about 2017 being a time when we might become crystalline and no great consciousness shift. So in regards to this confusion about when we'll be crystalline, when things will change, and what's Bashar talking about when he says we'll remain in physicality for another 1,000 years, do you have any comments or statements about this stuff?
Sure. I said earlier that I just don't do dates in terms of pinning things down, September, that type of thing. I do know that at this point in time, 90% of the planet, in terms of the humans, are operating in fourth dimension. Now, there are still a small number in third dimension who are in their comfort zone, if you will, and are digging their heels in and really want to go and continue third dimension because it is serving them quite well. But that's a very small minority. As I said earlier, to me, the way this is going to happen is one individual at a time going and becoming fifth dimensional, one individual at a time assuming a light body, and one individual at a time assuming a higher state of consciousness. The best information I have is that it will probably take 2 more generations before everybody on the planet is at a place where they are functioning at a fifth dimensional level. So that doesn't mean 1,000 years, and it's not next September. So it's something reasonable. And the reason I say a couple of generations or 50 years or however you want to do that is that it takes time for people to slowly maneuver out of their comfort zone, and it takes time for enough of the ones who have assumed a light body, who have gone and raised their consciousness to function in fifth dimension, to influence everybody around them. So it doesn't happen instantaneously. I do not believe that in the foreseeable future, in my foreseeable future, that we are going to have an extraterrestrial event where we're going to have a mass consciousness, a mass landing, anything like that happening. I don't see that. I have been repeatedly told that no, it's up to you. It's up to you to do it one individual at a time. So get on with it. So that's where I'm coming from, Alan.
Thank you very much, and I guess we'll bring this interview to an end, and I'll do so by telling you the same thing I tell all of my guests. Mark, you're a fascinating individual. I love this interview, and I've no doubt that I could do another interview with you if I wanted to, but one of my goals with this radio show is to get as many different guests on my show as possible before I give any one specific guest double dips, because I feel that that is the fairest, most impartial, and ultimately the most informative way of doing a radio show that seeks to expose the true and false nature of reality for what it is and what it isn't. So that does mean, Mark, I probably will not be asking you to come on my show again, but that's only because I need to give thousands of other fascinating individuals a chance to have some glory on my show. But mark my words, I will spread this interview far and wide so the information gets heard by many. I will upload it to YouTube, and I promise you, as soon as I finish reading the remaining 300 or so pages of tragedy and hope that I have to finish, your book, Chrysalis, will be the first book that I start reading afterwards.
Andrew, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here. These kind of shows I really enjoy because they challenge my thinking, and I would love to have people visit me at cosmicparadigm.com. And, of course, if you want to buy books, Chrysalis plus my other 5 books are listed there. So you all come. And, Andrew, thank you so much for having me here. I did enjoy it.
I'm glad you did. Take care, Mark. Namaste.
Bye for now.
Later. That's the end of this interview, folks. I will be not having a show this Wednesday because I'll be on that road trip to Georgia with Elizabeth Diamond Mulligan at some Indian reservation of sorts, and I'll be there until this upcoming Sunday. But next Wednesday, after this upcoming Wednesday, I am supposed to have Greg Whitaker on, Sean Margaret Cohen, my biggest fan. He heard about my show from her. His experience is how the Matrix and money go hand in hand. So it'll be a money-oriented interview and how money plays a role in controlling us in this Matrix and how hopefully we can get out of money and all that. So, excuse me, his name is Greg Whitaker. Yeah, Greg Whitaker is his name. He will be on the show 1 week from this upcoming Wednesday. So without further ado, everybody, namaste. This is Andrew Fisher signing off from Nature of Reality Radio. Enjoy the rest of your trek through infinite consciousness.